Hello, my name is Bonnie, and today I'm going to be presenting the Earth System Theory by James Lovelock. The Earth System Theory states that Earth functions as a complex, self-regulating system maintained by interactions between living organisms and their inorganic physical environment. James Lovelock was a British scientist, environmentalist, and inventor who was the first to propose this theory in the 1970s. This discovery was so significant because it brought understanding for the consequences of environmental disruption on Earth systems, now recognized as an interdependent system. The Earth System Theory, advanced by James Lovelock, offers a complete look at the Earth's biosphere, connecting the chemical, physical, and biological systems. Lovelock was a developing environmentalist and inventor, most known for proposing the Gaia hypothesis, which states that living organisms interact with their inorganic surroundings to maintain conditions conducive to life. This discovery was so important because it offered an approach to understanding the planet's complex dynamics. Furthermore, we could recognize that Earth is a self-regulating system and reconsider the impact of humans on our global system, addressing climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. However, there were many issues with improving the theory. The first issue was data challenges. They were the main issue in validating the Earth system theory due to difficulty in collecting clear and reliable data. Earth systems operate on a changing scale, both geographically and temporarily, making it difficult to gather complete data that correctly reflects the whole system. For example, while scientists can easily measure atmospheric gases and temperature changes, measuring how these variables interact with land use, water cycles, and biological processes at different levels can complicate data collection. As well, the Earth system theory faced skepticism from the scientific community. Many scientists preferred a more mechanistic and reductionist approach, believing that understanding individual factors of Earth systems would offer more complete data. This perspective ignores the importance of complex interactions and self-regulating biological and physical processes. Understandably, critics raised concerns about the difficulties in modeling such a complex system and argued for simplified models that focus on single systems, instead of the connected system perspective Lovelock advocated for. Furthermore, the interactions within Earth systems offers many problems. Natural processes are characterized by dynamic and often unpredictable cycles. For example, changes in climate change can impact vegetation patterns, which in turn affects carbon production and weather conditions. Focusing on specific cycles to understand these interactions becomes increasingly difficult as scientists must account for the bigger spectrum of factors at play. The unpredictable nature of these cycles can lead to inconsistent behaviors that make it difficult to construct accurate predictive models. Lovelock had many goals with this theory. The first one was self-regulation, which was to demonstrate and explain how Earth can self-regulate conditions suitable for life in a simple model despite its complex factors, including temperature and atmospheric composition and how they affect one another. He also was looking for a holistic view, which encourages consideration of the entire Earth system within environmental studies and policymaking to better our planet, recognizing Earth as a self-sustaining system with careful factors. And lastly, human impact, which was to show the impact of human activities on these natural balancing processes, meaning to use the theory to prove the negative effects of human disruption in natural environment in hope of lawful change to better our planet. So James Lovelock performed many groundbreaking experiments. We are going to focus on the gas chromatography experiment though, which I'm just going to say gas project, it's a very big word, which was to measure and trace gases in the atmosphere. Lovelock's gas project involved analyzing different gases in the atmosphere to understand their concentrations and identify sources. This work was important in studying how living organisms, specifically plants and microorganisms, influence these gas concentrations in relation to greenhouse gases and ozone depletion. So let's break down the gas project in short. I've got a chart here so you can follow along as I read these steps. So the gas project was a device that separates and measures specific gases. It uses a carrier gas, often helium or nitrogen, to transport the sample through a column that contains stationary phase materials. Secondly, there would be a sample injection. Air samples are injected into the machine where they mix with the carrier gas. Thirdly, separation. As the gases travel through the column, they separate based on their physical and chemical properties. And lastly, after separation, gases pass through a detector that measures their concentration and outputs data for analysis. Lovelock's experiment helped reveal how biological processes like photosynthesis and respiration impact atmospheric gas levels, building the framework for further research on climate change and environmental science. So, what were the effects of Lovelock's experiment? Well, he is known for a Gaia hypothesis, which of course suggests that Earth operates as a self-regulating system. His atmospheric studies revealed that biological activity, particularly by plankton, is crucial in regulating the atmosphere. So let's put it in short. Carbon dioxide regulation. Plankton photosynthesize, absorbing CO2 and producing oxygen. Next, DMS. Plankton release DMS, affecting cloud formation and helping cool the earth through sulfate aerosols. So let's explain this relation. First, production. Carbon dioxide is produced through respiration, burning fossil fuels like gas, coal, or oil. Next, they are absorbed by oceans. The CO2 travels in the atmosphere and is distributed globally by that, and it affects climate and weather patterns. So, natural systems like forests, oceans, and soil act as sinks, absorbing more CO2 than they release. Let's go on to DMS. DMS is a compound primarily produced in the oceans by phytoplankton. It forms through the breakdown of another compound called DMSP. The role in the climate is cloud formation, because when DMS is released into the atmosphere, it helps form clouds which reflect sunlight back into space, potentially cooling the earth. Regulation in the ocean. The amount of DMS produced can be influenced by factors like nutrient levels and temperature. Warmer waters may lead to more DMS production, which can affect cloud cover and climate. So overall, these two connect because changes in the climate can influence DMS production and in turn affect cloud cover and temperature, creating a cycle. So what makes up the Earth systems theory? Well, of course, it's very complex and interconnected. It's composed of many interacting subsystems, and understanding these systems involves focusing on several cycles, which is why I'm going to cut this up into a couple of parts. It includes the carbon cycle, the water or hydrological cycle, the nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, each playing a crucial role in sustaining life and maintaining ecological balance. So let's get into it. First, we have the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle involves the movement of carbon through the atmosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and lithosphere. Carbon exists in various forms, including carbon dioxide or CO2 in the atmosphere, organic carbon in living organisms, and fossil fuels in the Earth's crust. So we're going to go by step here. First, we have photosynthesis. Plants absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and convert it into glucose, releasing oxygen. Next, animals and plants release the CO2 back into the atmosphere during respiration. And then decomposition. Dead organic matter is broken down, releasing carbon back into the soil and atmosphere. And then lastly, burning fossil fuel adds large amounts of CO2 back into the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. So as you can see, you probably learned this in elementary. It's just in turn. The plant, it takes the CO2 from the air that the animal breathes out, turns it into oxygen. Again, the animal breathes it, turns it back to carbon, goes to the dirt, and then, of course, we have fossil fuels. So it's really just the transfer of CO2 to oxygen, CO2 to oxygen, and so on. The carbon cycle influences climate regulations, supporting plant growth, and is key for energy exchange within ecosystems. Next, we have the water cycle or the hydrological cycle. Again, you probably learned this in elementary, in fact, probably first grade or second grade. The water cycle describes the continuous movement of water within the earth and the atmosphere through processes such as evaporation, condensation, and precipitation, and infiltration and runoff. First, we have evaporation, where water from oceans, lakes, and rivers turn into vapor and enters the atmosphere. Water vapor cools and condenses to form clouds, also known as condensation. Precipitation. The water falls from the clouds as rain, snow, or other forms. And infiltration and runoff, water either infiltrates through the soil to recharge the groundwater or runs off into rivers and oceans. So again, you've probably seen this a few times. It's pretty simple. Oceans have water, evaporates from the sun, condensation causes clouds, clouds rain, rain hits the ground, and it runs off into lakes or goes back into the ground. The water cycle is essential for life, influence weather patterns and climate. In the distribution of ecosystems, it interacts with the carbon and nutrient cycles, impacting plant growth and soil health. As for the nitrogen cycle, it involves the transformation of nitrogen through various forms as it moves between the atmosphere, soil, and living organisms. Nitrogen is crucial for the production of proteins and nucleic acids. First, the nitrogen fixation. So N2 is converted into usable forms, or like ammonia most likely, by bacteria or through lightning. Nitrification, ammonia is converted into nitrates and then nitrates by soil bacteria. Assimilation. Plants absorb nitrates for growth while animals obtain nitrogen by consuming plants and other animals. And then we have denitrification. Bacteria converts nitrates back into nitrogen gas, returning it into the atmosphere. So that's a lot of words. We've got a cycle here. I'm going to cut it down a little bit. First, the nitrogen is converted into ammonia. The ammonia is converted into nitrates and then into the soil bacteria. Plants absorb these nitrates from the soil. Animals eat the plants and process it. Bacteria converts nitrates to gas and returns to the atmosphere. So in total, the nitrogen cycle links to the carbon cycle through organic matter decomposition, which releases nutrients back into the soil, promoting plant growth. Healthy plant life is important for cycling carbon. Lastly, we have the phosphorus cycle. The phosphorus cycle describes the movement of phosphorus through the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and biosphere. Phosphorus is vital for DNA, RNA, and energy transfer. First, we have weathering. Phosphate rocks weather, releasing phosphorus into the soil and water. Plants absorb phosphates from the soil, which then are transferred through food webs. Phosphorus can settle in sediments and part of geological formation. So as you can see, it can go two different ways here. It can either settle somewhere or it continues to go down this cycle. Decomposition of organic matter returns phosphorus to the soil and water. So what we got going on here is pretty simple. It's the rocks weather, goes into the soil, the plants absorb this phosphate from the soil, and then because when the organic matter or those plants they decompose, it returns back to the soil. So it's a pretty simple process. The phosphorus cycle is slower than the carbon and nitrogen cycles and doesn't have a significant atmospheric component. It plays a crucial role in plant growth, however, and interacts with water bodies, influencing aquatic systems. So what is the overall connection here? Well, I've got these in order to show kind of how they connect from one thing to the next and next. First, we have the carbon and nitrogen cycle. Increased carbon in the atmosphere can lead to enhanced plant growth, which requires nitrogen. Conversely, nitrogen fixation can promote plant biomass, increasing carbon sequestration. And then the water cycle and the carbon cycle, how that connects. The water cycle affects weather patterns and local climates, which influence vegetation types and carbon uptake. Additionally, transpiration from plants contributes to cloud formation and precipitation. All cycles contribute to soil health. Phosphorus and nitrogen in the soil affect plant growth, which in turn influences carbon dynamics through photosynthesis. So as you can see, these three here, just these three examples here, they all connect with carbon, but they all have their own way with cycling with the carbon. And now we have the human impact, which really should not be there, but activities like deforestation, industrial agriculture, and fossil fuel combustion can disrupt these cycles, exacerbating issues like climate change, water scarcity, and nutrient pollution. The Earth systems theory connects the relationships between various biochemical cycles. Through these cycles, Earth maintains a delicate balance that sustains life. So hopefully you can see through all of this how they connect and then the effect humans have on them and why it's considered so delicate and why this impact is considered negative. How was the Earth systems theory proved? Well, James Lovelock's Gaia hypothesis, or the Earth systems theory, is supported by global data from satellites, weather stations, and ecological studies. Satellites provided clear measurements of Earth's atmosphere, temperature patterns, and changes in vegetation over time, while weather stations helped collect local climate data to confirm shifts in weather patterns and extreme weather events linked to climate change. Further ecological studies into biodiversity and ecosystems helped illustrate the intricate connections between various life forms and their environments, demonstrating how changes in one part of the system affects others. Lovelock also collaborated with scientists in other fields such as ecologists, geologists, and climate scientists. Ecologists provided insights into the relationships between organisms and their environments, helping to understand energy flow and nutrient cycling. Geologists examined Earth's physical history, including past climate changes. They helped contextualize current ecological trends. Climate scientist studies on carbon emissions and atmospheric chemistry supported Lovelock's arguments regarding human impacts on natural systems. While this data, as well as input from other forms of natural scientists, validated his theory, Lovelock's own experiment and observations provided evidence of how Earth systems are self-sustaining and how they are influenced by human behavior, supporting the principles of Earth systems theory today. So, in conclusion, the Earth system theory proved the need for a better understanding of natural processes to address environmental issues. The theory is crucial to act in effective policies against climate change and biodiversity loss. Furthermore, Lovelock's discovery calls for consideration of Earth system factors in education and environmental policy to promote upholding sustainability and importance of ecological processes. And what I want to call out mainly here from this presentation is this should be taught in school. Not just one little bit of each of the cycles. The entire cycle should be taught as a lesson in school. And Lovelock's theory, just about him, should be taught. Because I've got this quote here. It's actually one of my favorite quotes. It's by David Attenborough. And he says, "If the children don't grow up knowing about nature and appreciating it, then they won't understand it. And if they don't understand it, they won't protect it. And if they don't protect it, who will?" That is why it's my favorite, because that is the most important message. For the next generations to come, they are in charge of protecting nature, and we are in charge of teaching them about it. Thank you for watching and learning with me. Be sure to educate a friend.